All right, traders, this is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day recap for Tuesday, the 21st. So, a lot of things going on today. Geez, I could probably have a video going on for about 40 minutes. I think when we did the midday session today, I went over an hour today because there was just a lot of things to talk about and a lot of movers, really. So, a lot of exciting things. I mean, this is exciting stuff. I was listening to CNBC earlier, and like a couple of them are like so down. Like the S&P is up, and I don't know. It's just funny why people are bearish. I don't get it. Maybe there's a little bit of political thinking, and I don't know. But I'm listening just to a couple commentators, and there's just like, oh yeah, we're at. I can't believe we're making record highs. This is exciting. So I'm looking, I'm looking at the VTI ETF. So yes, the big headline was that the S&P made a new high. For me, I trade all caps, right? So I'm more concerned with the small caps, mid caps, everything, not just large caps. So I think it's great progress to see the S&P finally get back to the January levels. It took a very big hiatus off of that levels, but it's been this way for the last couple weeks with all caps, right? Small caps, mid caps, everything. So this is a very powerful rally that we've got in the U.S. It's not, it's not small market breadth that we've got going on. It's not a few leaders. I think even those names that I think everybody seems to be, I think some of the, I'm trying to think of the right term, but I think some of the market doubters or, have been saying, that it's just the FANG stocks. Well, we know that that's complete bullshit, right? I'm sorry to swear, but there's just a lot of good outperformance in there, and all you have to do is kind of open up your eyes to those who are a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm really being mean, but I just think that there's a lot of good things going on in the market, and it's nice to see this rolling. Bull market where we're seeing a lot of rotation and sometimes a couple other sectors take over and they run with the ball, then they hand the ball off to another group. So let's start with the home builders today, right? This group has really been kind of kicked while it's been down. And Toll Brothers, they had some really nice things to say on the earnings call. If you didn't have a chance to kind of look at the comments, it seems to me that they're still making money in this environment while overall sales have kind of come in. I think DHI is probably my favorite of this group. It's been a frustrating trade, right? We've seen some call activity all through here, and it's been a challenging environment for the home builders. So I would keep an eye on this group, considering that really nothing has gone on in this group. Let's see what Lowe's does tomorrow. This is the home builders ETF, even though it's not called the home builders ETF, but there's 66% of the home builders in the ITB, and the XHB it's much less. I know it's confusing, but you always want to look at the ETF itself to see what's in there. But this was nice to see this group get going, and then the energy stocks finally got going today too, which have kind of been really beaten up, even though that oil hasn't really fully broken down, and oil finally had a nice day of gains. I think it still did. And it finished off the highs, but still up 1%. But really, I did a couple trades, and I'll kind of walk you through some of the trades that I did. And I know that I've mentioned these in previous videos, so this is not after the fact stuff. These are trades that I have been talking about for the last couple days. This I just put on. This is IWN. This is small cap value. So, this also looks like, if you look at the IWM chart, someone on Twitter said to me, hey, this looks so similar to IWM. Well, there's major crossover here. This is 2000, the small cap value, but a lot of these names are in the IWM itself. I just thought that we might see a little bit of a rotation into value. So if you played this with IWM, you could see I've got a trend line there drawn, a nice breakout there. I chose to play it with IWN. I thought this was a little bit more coiled, and sometimes when you get a group of stocks or just a stock that's really coiled, you could see an explosive move to the upside. So I hope this continues. I took a few targets in this actually today, but I'm expecting more upside in IWM. A couple other trades that I've been talking about. FedEx got going today. I was able to take a target in this one. KSU, which is another one that I've been just playing with what I've been referring to as the waiting game with KSU. Really nice weekly bar. I went over this, I think, in the weekend newsletter, that KSU had kind of saved itself by a thread here on the weekly chart. But you got a nice consolidation and a nice move outside of value. So I was only able to hit one target in this one because the options are a little bit wide, but really, really nice. And I'll show you, like, so when we have a day like this, when you have so many areas participating, and it's kind of to me, it's kind of a blessing. I take targets. I try to take as many targets as possible. Plus, I've been kind of adding positions into this, and sorry, someone's just hitting me with an IM, and I just wanted to see what it was. But I'll go through, as I always do, give full transparency into what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. And here's my trade blotter for the day. So you could see I did take some targets in this one. I got out of Alta, which I unwound some of that yesterday, but I held on a piece. I was able to hit 430 on this, so almost a double in Alta. I also got out of RL by mistake this morning by the whole thing. It was kind of a starter position anyway. FTC, which is another name that's been just in beast mode. This is what I would call like quality. This is the weekly chart of FTC, but quality option flow. Whenever they come in and buy this name, and by the way, I'm just about out of this. I've already taken, I think, 3 targets in this FTC. You could see it kind of had a little bit of a reversal bar, so probably a good place to take your profits. Well, we'll see. I'm leaving a runner on for now. What else did I do today? ASHR was able to take a first target in that one. I bought back on Friday. I didn't get a chance to put on a really large trade because Amazon was so quick it rebounded on Friday, but I sold some put spreads for 260. I was able to buy them back for 90 cents. By the way, Amazon, right? I mean, while there's been some market rotation that's been taking place, Amazon has been really, really nice. I mean, you look at what happened to Facebook last week and Netflix last week, although Netflix has recovered quite nicely. But Amazon really showed no weakness whatsoever. I did go into Google. Again, I will always show the winners and the losers. Google is not a loser, but it just hasn't worked yet, and actually gave back and kind of reversed a little bit. I've got another name that is disappointing as well, is MasterCard. Let's see where MasterCard closed on the day. Yeah, it finished down 80 basis points. So it's still, above the 50-day moving average. I'm just really kind of frustrated that this thing hasn't taken off yet. But it is what it is. So let me just talk about some of these trades and some of the trades that have really been working for me. And there's so many. I say this a lot in these videos, but I know that retail traders are glued to option activity. I know that's been like the trend of the last couple of years, but I have to tell you, while there was a ton of option activity, I'm going to go through the option flow in just a minute, but I have to tell you, the majority of trades that I've been crushing it on, they're not option related. You want to talk about one of the biggest option trades that we've seen positioning is EA. And this thing, if you've been sitting in EA and a couple of the other, really nice, I call them really nice because they look like they're pretty good trades that have been going up on the tape. But EA has been just stuck in the mud. So eventually it might work its way out. I'm in January calls in EA, but I'll tell you this, following option flow, I think people get hypnotized with this stuff, and sometimes they people will only look at option flow, and there's a lot of other things out there. So you do not need to rely on this stuff because I have to tell you, a lot of the trades that we see on the tape, some work, some don't. So, if you're really disciplined in your trading and waiting for chart setups and so forth, I tell you, you don't need to follow the aggressive option flow. And the reason why I say this is because I hope you kind of think about this as a breath of fresh air, that you really, it's nice to get trade ideas, which is primarily what I use it for. Option activity, one of the things, so let me give an example of that. In the semis today, right? Everybody getting super bearish about the semiconductors and they're breaking down. Well, they were one of the best performing groups today, and right off the bat we saw things like Lam Research had some call buying in. TSM had some call buying. Now, it could be that they were buying some of these names because Analog Devices reports tomorrow morning, and I believe those are, I'm not a semi, I don't know everything about chips, but I believe that some of those chips involved in Qorvo. Qorvo saw some repeat activity today, almost, it's just an inside day. It did not get over yesterday's open, which was a crazy bar in Qorvo, but I think they were buying Qorvo possibly because Analog Devices reports tomorrow. So could also be that it was a decent dip. I mean, we saw calls go up here. Maybe the call buyer returning in there, but Qorvo was one of those nice trades. And if you day traded it, you could always use option activity for day trades. But there was definitely some aggressive repeat activity going up September and a little bit of November. But I think the November ones were the ones where they really traded a lot of volume. Let's see what they traded on the overall day. 4,400. All right, so pretty good flow there. There was a little bit of Netflix off the beginning of the day, but yeah, the semiconductors. There's a little bit of Micron calls that went up today too, and Micron had a lovely day. So after sentiment gets pretty washed out, which I think it really did in the semiconductors, buyers come back in and dip by a little bit. Micron was up 3.9%. So that's good, for option activities for that. But, just staying in some of these trades, I don't think is much different than you finding your own setups on the tape. And really that's, where I've excelled in the past. I mean, the FedEx, there was no option activity really in FedEx, maybe a small momentum play. But that was something that we found on our own for a nice chart setup. Twitter finally got going today. So this is a trade where I've got two different lines on right now. It did not close on the highs, and it still has work to do to kind of get out of this range and get a little bit separation. Maybe reclaim the 20-day moving average would be nice, which is this line that I've got going on here. But I'm in October. I was able to find it to, I don't want to say finally because I just put the trade on last week, but was able to take a target in the October. I'm still holding January, so I've got two different lines on there in the Twitter calls. So nice. And again, a lot of these names I've really had to play a little bit of the waiting game. A few other trades that we saw today. Again, you could see the blotter is pretty much filled. This is what's known as a full blotter, and I think I stopped writing trades down around like 2 o'clock today. JCI saw a nice call spread. JCI actually jumped. This was 10,000 contracts that went up. All right, so big move in this one today. Oh yeah, let me show you the EA trade today. I have to check open interest. There's huge open interest on this, 75,000 contracts. So this is like an $18 million order. So again, is this interesting? Yes. Does it mean that the stock is going to go up right away? No, and we've seen tons of call activity for 2 weeks now in EA, and the damn thing hasn't done anything. So, again, the reason why I show you this is because just because it's really interesting flow, I mean, so you have to ask yourself, because I think some of this gets lost on people as well that I see on Twitter mostly. Would you rather be in an interesting option activity order, or would you rather be in an order, or would you rather be in a trade that goes up, right? I really don't care how interesting it is. I want to make money. So I think some people are so fixated that it's an interesting order, but I would rather be in the trade that goes up. So yes, I'm kind of, not that being, and again, I am in EA. It's just, it hasn't done anything. It's actually, I've lost money in this point. So again, I'm giving you these examples so that you don't make the mistake of kind of coming onto Twitter and saying, oh, all these people know something because they're following option activity. Not really. And that's also like on CNBC, they have a segment where they go over option activity. You can find your own trades. Does it help to give you ideas? Sure. DWDP, I think also looks pretty interesting, but stalled out again at the 200-day moving average. So every time this thing has gotten to the 200-day moving average, it's stalled out. But someone likes it. It had good earnings. We've seen aggressive call activity now twice. And I looked at this when the stock, keep in mind, if you bought these options today, you lost money because the stock, when the options went up, the stock was up 1%. The stock only finished up 0.5% on the day. So, writing down these trades in a notepad, just like I do on a day-to-day basis, because I don't like following some of this stuff because it will just lead you to losses. So, we'll see what this thing does. I personally would maybe wait until it crosses, maybe wait for a little bit of confirmation, but at least you know that there's some big institutional money in these names. A few other names. Pfizer saw more calls go up today. So again, I could really spend about 20 minutes going through this. SPY saw some nice calls that went up today, which is unusual to see an aggressive call buyer in this one. SGMS, really a name that's gotten beaten up. Again, another example of, calls worked originally like about a year ago when they started trading SGMS calls, but they've been still doing the same thing in SGMS, and this thing hasn't worked at all. If you followed SGMS, you lost money in the last 3 months. So, you have to have your own rules and parameters. A break of the 200-day moving average is probably the last time that I look to play this name. Does it look tempting down here? Sure. It's pretty washed out. It's a 24 RSI. So how do I position for this kind of stuff? Did I buy any SGMS today? Yes. What did I buy? A 2-lot, a $400. That's how much confidence I have in this flow. My average trade size is sometimes gets to be sometimes around $5,000. Right now I have a $400 trade in SGMS. So even though it's super, super sizable, it doesn't necessarily mean that the stock is going to go up or that they're going to be correct. So it is an $11 million trade that they went out to January 2020. They also bought this January's 39 calls. That's the one that I went with. That's the one that I saw first on the tape. Just a few other ones for the day. Like I said, there's a lot in here. They did buy some of this, another cannabis name. This is CRON. Had a nice pop today. That's a nice looking chart, by the way. I drew this about this trend line 2 weeks ago, and then I kind of stopped watching it. But funny because when I stop watching it, sometimes these things get going. So again, they didn't buy calls in here. They bought calls up here. So it looks like a momentum call buyer, someone chasing a little bit. Not the best order flow, I would say, in the world. This maybe will be the last trade that I focus on. This is Stitch Fix or whatever it is. SFIX. What's this thing called? Stitch Fix, right? So interesting. It's right out of breakout. So if you believe, you got to kind of put this to the back of your mind that there's an aggressive call buyer in there. It's what you believe, right? So you believe that this thing has to punch out and go higher here. So I bought 100 shares of this. So instead of buying the options, which are all the way out, keep in mind the strike on this SFIX. This is also something that you have to do when you kind of look at this option activity. Is look to see how far out of the money, right? So they're buying the 49 calls, right? So how far is that away? And again, they're going out to March. It's a decent. It has decent implied volatility. So it's a $600,000 trade. That's a decent sized trade. But the 49 strike, right? So it's at 3471. Let's just compute the percentage. So they're looking for a 40% increase. So that's why I went ahead and bought stock. I'm not going to sit in a 49 strike option for 6 months. I don't know anything on the stock. Does it look like it could break out? Yeah. So I bought stock on this one. All right. So that's the day's video. I would say just a lot of really good things going on in the market. The VIX did end up higher on the day. So you have to kind of be a little bit mindful of this when the market goes up and the VIX goes up. We saw this back in January. I wouldn't say that this is a warning signal yet, but keep an eye on this VIX. If it starts to head up, I would say above 15 in the VIX, this is the orange is what the VIX did in January. Notice that the VIX started to go up before the market started to head down. So if this starts to really charge up, and I think it's too early. Right now we're at a 1286. The wind changing direction is going to cause the VIX to go higher at this low level. But I would say if the VIX starts to go above 15, take note of that and maybe start to think about putting on a hedge at that point. Or maybe a little bit protection or downsizing your positioning a little bit. All right, guys, thanks for watching the video. Still, pretty exciting day. A lot of things moving to the upside. A lot of participation going on. I think a lot of positive stuff. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.